Welcome to the Unitarian Christian Alliance podcast. Are you considering attending the UCA conference next month? Are you already registered but just want to know more? Then this is for you. It's episode 60, Pre-UCA Conference 2022 Roundtable, with participants Jake Ballard, Anna Brown, and myself, Mark Cain. What is a Roundtable UCA podcast? It's a small group conversation about something current, timely. Typically, I make the episodes evergreen. That's a term used for content that is valuable at any time, long after it's been released. A daily news commentary is not evergreen. It won't be very interesting 2 years later. But here, the stories of Hildy Chandler, Chuck Graham, John Lawson, and the others, they're timeless. Making forever content is my objective. But not in this case. The Roundtable episodes will be deliberately focused on something going on at that time, and they will be more free-form, less produced and edited. Hopefully, that makes it less editing work for me, and it gives you something unique. If you are currently binge listening to the entire podcast and you're in the year 2024, first, my 2022 self, me, greets you, and I want you to know this episode is entirely out of date. You, my kingdom citizen of the future, are welcome to skip it. My feelings won't be hurt. Well, as long as you and I are talking, you'll be excited to know that there are some amazing episodes after this one that you are going to enjoy, like the story of the former Mormon and a question about why the Trinity is so mainstream. So, again, don't feel bad if you skip this and move on to those. But if you loved Anna Brown's laugh in episode 6, working at the Colson Center, and you want to relive it again, then by all means, throw caution to the wind and stay. Those of you who know me know that I love audio craft, and I will tend to spend a lot of time editing an episode. It's a blessing and a curse. Brandon Duke, also on the UCA board, and who has shown up several times here, he suggested like a roundtable format to allow me the freedom to just talk about current and timely content and to create a show which can be so free-form that it doesn't require much editing. And I always wanted to take a suggestion seriously. I fulfilled his vision today. This is new for me because I'm going to attempt to not edit this much. And I'm nervous.
Me too, Mark.
What if I don't know.
Well, I'm not nervous at all.
Oh, okay.
I'm really glad that we're going to have this conversation free form.
All right, yeah. So if we could do a little introduction so people understand who everybody is, why don't we start with you, Jake?
Hi, I'm Jake Ballard. I live in South Bend, Indiana. I'm a pastor at Timberland Bible Church, pastor in the Church of God General Conference. I am excited to go to my first UCA conference. I've been in the Church of God all my life and a Unitarian Christian for all my life. So really excited to meet a bunch of you and a lot of people who have made this journey in the past few years or made it over time, and see people who have come to this truth that I've been blessed to know for a long time. So it's really cool. And it's great to be on with you, Mark and Anna, and just be able to discuss what's coming up with the conference.
Yeah. Now, you don't know exactly what's coming up with the conference, apart from one particular area, and we'll get to that in a moment, because you've not been there before, and this will be a fresh experience for you. Now, Anna has been there before. Anna, you've also been on my podcast before.
Yeah, it was great.
It was episode 6.
6, the Colson Center. We talked about my job.
Yeah. And a lot of people will reference your episode as just funny and interesting. So good job for standing the test of time.
That's so kind. Thank you for that compliment, Mark.
And when we talked way back at the Colson Center, you lived in Colorado. And now...
So much has changed. Okay, so we were living in Colorado Springs, my husband, John Brown, and I. And since then, we felt like we had found an opportunity that God was calling us to through, a series of events. If you've worked with the kind of way that God makes circumstances come together, then you have your own experience probably that's like this. And all these events happened. We ended up moving to Kentucky just when we were on our way to move to Louisville, Kentucky. We were about a month prior to our final move date. We found out that there was going to be a church plant in Louisville, Kentucky. That was going to be a Unitarian church. It's called Compass Christian Church. And our first service is next weekend in Louisville, Kentucky, September 18th.
Okay, that's exciting. If anybody missed earlier episodes, Will Barlow talked about it in episode 50 and 51 about the church plant, so they could go back and check that out. So what I hope to cover today is some of the details about the conference. I want to talk about the papers because Jake was involved in that, and even about some of the sponsors that are coming because Anna knows about that. So Jake, we had a few people in mind that could help us review the papers. We're like, oh, we're going to have this person maybe or this person help. Some of the people we had in mind submitted papers and we didn't realize it, so they couldn't review them. That would be kind of a little bit,
Yeah.
But then I remembered Jake Ballard is an academic-minded kind of person. He loves to think. He loves to read. And I was like, I bet he would be interested in joining the team to get through these papers and help us select the ones for the conference. And then I reached out to you, and you said yes.
I did say yes, and I was really glad I did because it was a blast to go through the papers. We had a number of them. Let's see, like something in the range of like 15 papers.
Wow.
From various authors. Some people submitted even multiple papers, and we did so when I say we, there's a whole committee. There were 4 of us on it, and we each read all of the papers. And then we got together and ranked them individually. All of us said, what do we think is number 1 to all the way through? And then we worked together to try and bring the number down. All of them were great. All of them had things that were like, this is really great. And we whittled it down to just a smaller number that we could manage.
Now, we had one person gather all the papers and make sure they were all stripped of names. You read papers with no idea who they were from. You just read them.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it was just on the content. That was the only thing that we were looking at is, does this paper have academic rigor? Is it well argued? Does it have good sources? Does it meet needs? I think all of us came with different expectations, and a lot of mine were, well, what does this say to all of us as Unitarian Christians? What is it trying to say? Does it answer a question? And there are obviously academic requirements, but also some, hey, I think this one really, if we dig into it a little bit, we'll have something great here and something we can really talk about. It was a really great opportunity, and we came down to 7 speakers and presenters. You'll get to hear them, and now we have the names, and they've all said yes, which is really exciting. So do you want me to go through these?
Yeah, we could go through those, but one of the things, because do you remember when you got the reveal and you saw the names?
Oh, yeah.
Was there any moment on the list of names that you're like, oh, interesting?
Yes, actually. There were some that was like, oh, I didn't expect that. There was one where it was, hey, I knew this person would probably write a paper, but I didn't think that he'd write that paper. That was one of them. And then one of them, funny to me, was when I was reading Dustin Smith, his paper, it felt like I was listening to one of his episodes of the Great Biblical Unitarian Podcast.
No
which
way.
Is great. It was wonderful. It was so good. So it was just really interesting to kind of hear the speakers in the paper. I was like, that's got to be Dustin. And I didn't feel bad about that. I was just like, I'd be surprised if it wasn't. And boom, it was.
Yeah.
So maybe that one. Other people surprised me. I was really excited to read the, I will mess up his last name if I try and say it.
Let me see if I...
Kokinyesi?
Yeah. Here, let me...
I'll say the name of the paper. When the language barrier is like a bushel, bringing the light of the 454-year-old Transylvanian Unitarian Church to the English-speaking world through translation of Hungarian language source materials. Love that. What a catchy title. Just
excellent.
But what he did in that paper was just great. And I thought, this is one, I did not know to expect anything like that. And to bring to bear all of this information from churches that have been doing this for 450 plus years. That's pretty amazing. So that was really cool. One of those ones where we're saying, yes, we want to see more of this and more of the words from these people who have been doing this for so long.
Yeah.
Even long before probably any of the conferences that we have, supporting this, it's an old movement. I think that's great.
Yeah. Robert Kokonyesi. We also had a paper from somebody who doesn't normally write papers like this that I know of. And she happens to be sitting here in this meeting.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Well, good job, Anna.
Thank you so much, Mark. Yeah, it was really exciting. I've probably been thinking about my paper topic for like a couple of years, I would say.
Oh, my.
Kind of turning this question over in my mind. And so I pretty much committed myself to writing a paper and submitting it. That's the kind of person that I am.
Yeah.
And I definitely went through a period of time where I thought, I'm going to do this even if it's really bad.
Well,
well, it was really good. So
thank you.
had you ever done something that would be considered an academic paper before? I know you like to write, but there's in an academic paper, you want to lay things out well. You want to get your footnotes. I mean, what was this like for you?
Okay, so I do have a writing background. It seems like it's scaling more formal as time goes on. My writing career actually, I think, really formally began. Like my professional writing career began when I was a paid blogger living in Barcelona, Spain. I worked for this British company, and they would have me write bachelor and bachelorette party themed blog posts in the persona of a randy British lad.
Okay.
Which was shameful.
It sounds like that prepared you well for this paper. I mean, clearly.
Wow, yeah.
Oh,
I see that just translating over.
And then, I cut my teeth probably as a reporter in Colorado Springs. I got some work doing freelance reporting. I write for this organization called the Maverick Observer, and my editor is so good. She's incredible. She really taught me to write. She gave me a book of short essays and said, read this, copy everything that they do. And it went great.
All right. Were any of those in that book a theological paper?
No, I think that I have to admit that at the end here, no, I haven't done anything like this before.
Well, apparently you paid attention to the criteria. There was a set of criteria, like following certain standards so that they would all come in the same length.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember all the standards, but we wanted it to be done in a proper way so that everything was compared pretty much apples to apples. It was just all they had to do was think about the content and work through it that way. So I think you had mentioned, I might write a paper. I heard you say something about that, but I didn't know for sure if you ever submitted one. So good job, Anna.
Thank you.
I was a little excited when I saw that your name popped up. I was like, dude, she did it.
Me too, Mark. I was also excited when my name popped up.
I'm just curious, Jake, when you read her paper, was she one of the ones you had no idea who it was?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was one of those, I think all of the papers had something interesting about them and something, there was a few that stood out and we were saying, these really seem to, they've taken the time to work through the arguments carefully. A lot of it is also addressing the requirements because it's hard to meet that word amount of like, hey, you have to have at least this many, but also sometimes it's hard to cut back into that, right? To make sure that you're within this nice range rather than going on. I can talk a lot. So yeah. I understand having to cut the words to get to that right point.
Well, there was a quote somebody said once, like, this would have been shorter, but I didn't have enough time.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning it takes time to shorten and compress.
Mm-hmm.
It just ballpark, Anna. How many revisions, like after you got done, it's like, okay, you give it to somebody and read and then take it back and make edits?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so first I have to add that I work for Living Hope International Ministries. I started that after we last spoke on the podcast, Mark. And because of that, I spend a lot of time working pretty closely with Sean Finnegan. He does this kind of thing all the time. So I spend a lot of time looking at his papers, maybe editing his papers a little bit for style. And because of that, I think that's really like helped me get a sense of what this kind of thing should look like.
Oh.
That was just incredibly helpful. I had a couple of people who were very kind to look at it for me. Sean Finnegan gave me a very kind once-over. Jerry Werewolf was very kind. It definitely felt like it took a ton of time and a lot of vigorous editing, but I ended up only having the courage to show it to a couple of people.
That's so funny. Well, good job.
Thanks.
I think this would be a good time, Jake. Let's just quickly list the topics that we're going to hear.
Yeah. Okay. So there will be applying Old Testament Yahweh passages to Jesus. That is by Jerry Wierwille.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have the plural of majesty in the Hebrew Bible. That's the one by Dustin Smith.
Okay.
And then, of course, we have Anna's Nothing Mere About Man in the Image of God. So addressing like that mere man attack that's made.
Right.
Then we have Christology, Worship, and the Eucharist. That's by Sam Tideman.
Mm-hmm.
We have The Key of Truth by Sean Finnegan, talking specifically about a document called The Key of Truth.
Key of Truth. That's Armenian.
It's The Key of Truth, a manual of the Paulician Church of Armenia.
It's pronounced Paulician.
Paulician. Okay. A manual of the Paulician Church of Armenia. So yeah, it's an Armenian document.
Okay, so it's a historical piece on an older document.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's saying, is this document that is out there, when was it actually written? And that's going to determine who believed what in that area. So it's talking about other parts of the world where the Unitarian view of God had some influence and had some sway.
Okay, very good.
Then we also have Bill Schlegel, who wrote, Do Micah 5:2 and Matthew 2:5-6 declare the eternal deity of the Messiah? So that's one of the really focused in passages. This one is quoting the other. How do they relate? And do they declare that deity of the Messiah, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then finally, the one that we talked about already is the language barrier is like a bushel. That really nice, great name. and it has a lot of references to papers that have been put up onto the Unitarian Torch website. He'll pass that along, but English translations so that it can kind of enter into hopefully a greater audience and reading of these old documents that he's constantly translating into English, which is just really cool.
Now, is he the translator?
Yes, of some of them. He doesn't translate all of them, but I know he translates a good portion, if not most of them. I'm not sure. I don't have a ton of information about him. I'm meeting all of these people for the first time for me.
Yeah. Anna, when you see this lineup of papers, how does it feel that you are among this swath of material?
I feel so honored, Mark. If somebody were to ask me right now, what parts of the UCA conference, which workshops are you selecting? I have no idea. I'm honestly just working on my PowerPoint, just trying to stay calm. And I think that when it comes to what I'm going to be watching, it's going to be all of the papers. And I'm really excited.
That's cool. It's a really unique batch. It covers a breadth. There's history, there's very focused theological questions, there's broad, and it has a wider scope in her case. It's a nice mix.
Yeah.
So you guys did a great job.
I was honored to be on the committee because these people were very serious. We worked really hard. I know that the people who put the time and effort into making them are going to do a great job presenting them and then following up those presentations with, I believe, Q&As.
Yes.
Honestly, that's the thing I'm kind of the most excited for because I know that when you're trying to make a paper and you get stuff that you have to leave on the cutting room floor, sometimes you're ready to answer all of these questions. And so I'm really excited to be a part of those. I have questions myself that I was writing down in the sides and the margins that I plan on bringing. So some prepared questions maybe, but I'm right there with you, Anna, just being at all of it and going through all these paper presentations. That is really cool and really exciting. And even if I've read them, I think experiencing them in the room with the question and answer is going to be a really awesome experience.
They have the option to just talk about some of the material and basically say, you've got the paper in front of you, or it'll be accessible on the app, actually. We're going to be using an app for the whole event so you can download and see all the content. So it's going to be an interesting experience to have the personal element coming through as the paper and the content is being presented. So I think you're right, Jake. It should be quite cool.
Mm-hmm.
I had a few people tell me who hadn't gotten out as much from their own group. And the UCA conference was their first time to really engage with a lot of people who had this commonality, but had a completely different background. And they said people would just talk and ask questions and engage on these topics, even when they disagreed. And it was like normal to just talk through this and say, well, what about this? Oh, okay. They didn't expect it. I think, it's a problem we have in close-knit groups. And we even do this to ourselves with social media. If we just only listen to people and filter only to people who sound like us, we eventually forget that people are in other places in their lives and they've come from different backgrounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a really special group of people, I think, who are really willing intellectually to jump up and wrestle with the big questions. Part of that is probably just being a Unitarian to start with. You don't get here without thinking about it.
Yeah, unless you're one of us that was born into it. But still, you have to think about it because all you do is get challenged at every turn.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Every Christmas radio program, every Bible study fellowship that somebody asks you to join them in, I'm like, okay, I'll join you. But yeah, every time. Let's switch gears slightly. Quite a few of the people last year, when they came, they were thinking more of like the UCA podcast, meet a lot of people, and wish they had more options. That was one of the feedbacks we got. So now we have workshops that will happen at the same time as each paper. So you have an option.
I think it's really beautiful how the Unitarian Christian Alliance conference, planning group, really deliberately responded to feedback. I really appreciate that. I know you guys got a lot of feedback. I know that some of it was critical. Some of it's always critical. But I also know that you guys saw this need for there to be a space for people who maybe have no passion for Greek grammar at all, or who are really here to just connect with people. I really love that there's going to be space for all kinds of different perspectives and different ways of participating with the conference this year.
Yeah.
Even though I'm going to be definitely in the paper presentations, and so I might miss all of the workshops.
Well, here's some of the topics. I deliberately focused on topics that were practical. A workshop by definition is something that gives you a skill. You go to a workshop to work on building, improving skills. You don't confuse a workshop with a lecture. So the topics that we've got lined up: homeschooling, dealing with conflict, podcast technology. I know this guy who's going to do that one.
Are you going to do it, Mark?
Yes, I am.
I hope so.
It's a technical one where I intend for people who are serious, I really might want to do this. What are the costs? What are the benefits? What are the kinds of technical things that I should probably know about before I dive in? And, what is the scale like? There's an entire gradient of podcasting style. You can go from not expensive, not taking you 15 hours to edit. You can go from there all the way up to what I do typically, and that's to take a lot of time. Okay, another one, how to use the biblical languages at any skill level. That's going to be cool. We're going to have a couple of the folks who work with the REV version there.
Oh, I love that. I always call it, when I'm teaching at church, I always call it knowing enough Hebrew or Greek to be dangerous. I like terming it that way because there's so much that you can do, even if you just have this slight little bit. So I think that's great.
Yeah. There's so many good resources already out there that if you just, could learn to know which ones work well and how to use them well, I think that would serve us really well. So, and then we have a presentation on hermeneutics, one on raising kids in the Unitarian faith, and organizing an online fellowship.
My husband's teaching that one. So I lied. When I said that I wasn't going to go to any of the workshops, I think I said that a minute ago. I reserve the right to attend any workshop, and I'm definitely going to attend that one.
All right. Well, I understand.
I love the very practical applications, and some of them are really, really good. I mean, the one for me that really sticks out is homeschooling. As a guy who would love to homeschool his kids, even though all of my kids are extroverts to the absolute max. So it's really hard to imagine that they'll ever do that. A lot of the groups that I think sound the best have faith commitments and faith teachings that make me go, is this the best thing to do? Is there maybe something else that we should be looking at? And so I love that there's practical applications for all of these. Raising your kids in the Unitarian faith, I think, is one that a lot of people will be saying, well, If you're in a place where there are no churches around you, and like, how do we do that? How do we raise our kids to love God and yet not have a strong faith community that we feel comfortable attending? So yeah, that's really cool. I love that list.
Mm-hmm. We're going to have 3 sessions. There'll be 2 in the morning and 1 after lunch, and then more open time after that. The night sessions are going to be different. The first night's going to be more about kind of like a State of the Union, a lay of the land, exciting, welcome kind of experience. The second night will be one of the papers presented that we thought might have a broad appeal. Anna.
Yeah, it's gonna be me. Oh
Yes.
man, I'm so excited.
And then the last night, we're going to try something that I'm still working on the plans for, but creating an evening experience about the community, about our community together, that will also be a podcast episode. Like Prairie Home Companion, I don't know, wish me luck as we prepare what that's going to be.
That's really cool.
Mark, your creativity knows no bounds. I have every confidence.
It will certainly be unique. Will somebody say, "Why are you doing that?" Probably. But yeah, But in the afternoon, in that more free time, a couple of unique things are going to take place. On the first afternoon, Friday afternoon, after the third session, so we'll have lunch, we'll have a session, which would be workshop or paper. Then we're going to have a time called the Meetups. And the Meetups are not sessions. They're not workshops. They're just areas. I'm expecting to have the signs on the table so that you can walk around and be like, oh, there's the group going to talk about children's ministry. Oh, here's some people who are interested in, and I'll go through the list here in a moment. And it's just a chance for you to gather at that table and discover there's several people here who are interested in the same thing I'm interested in. Mm-hmm. I want to get to know these people. Hey, maybe we could work together. Maybe get together once a month and talk about these things to encourage each other as we do them. But how do you find these people? How do you know, for example, that you had somebody interested in writing a book? Like you just sit there and you look across the room during one of the sessions. You're like, that guy looks like an author. I can see it in his eyes.
You can always tell it's the hair.
So we're going to deliberately put these places up, these signs, so that for that couple-hour period, you walk around and talk to people who you know are interested in the same thing, and you make connections. Well, you possibly make a connection that inspires a new activity, and then you guys go and do amazing things. That's called the Meetups.
That's great.
That sounds awesome. That sounds like the Unitarian Christian Alliance doing what it was literally invented to do. So I love that.
Yes. I'm going to run down a list of the Meetup topics as they currently stand. It may turn out for practical reasons that it's slightly too long, and my apologies if one of the ones I read here end up not there. You can still find people and talk about it because you've got the whole weekend to talk about stuff. Even though we had a workshop on it, we're still going to have a Meetup area for homeschooling where you can actually get connections to people that you would want to talk to later. One for podcasting, one for YouTubing, because we've got quite a few YouTubers out there. Publishing and writing for the authors among us. Children's ministry. Bible study resources. Specifically, I'm thinking like people who produce tools or who produce resources for study. We have people who make apps. There may be folks just getting into that, and they'd love to have more connections. Apologetics, the enthusiasts of the craft. Debating. Church planting. Missions. Social media. Home fellowships. Music and worship. Singles. Singletarians, as I like to call it. Counseling and getting counseling. Like, where would you go for counseling? I've got a question that's going to come up in a future episode about that. It's from somebody who came through a very hard church situation and is asking, what are the resources? What can we do? Academics / grad school. There's a few of us out there who want to keep doing that. Jake, I'm looking at you.
Oh yeah. I think it's great that we're going to have conversations about it because it's a hard path to take, but if people are excited and they would love to know more answers, that's the kind of place where I'd go and give my 2 cents because it was enjoyable but very difficult.
You have a
Masters of Divinity.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'd love to go on and look at a doctorate, but maybe talking to people, what's the next step? What would you suggest kind of thing?
Yeah. 2 more. Bible Lands Travel. We've got folks who've wanted to go. Where do you start? And relocating, which Anna has recently experienced. So that's the list as it currently stands. Subject to change. You could just roam about freely during this time of meetups. So you could go to the one maybe you're most interested in at first and make sure either you get your name down or something. I just think this is one of my favorite parts.
Yeah, I think I'm really excited about that lineup. I am incredulous about the idea of meetups as a concept, but when I heard you read out that list, I thought, oh man, I want to know about that. That's the one for me. And then you read the next one and I was like, oh, wait, hang on a second. I'm going to need to go to that next one afterwards. I think I've got it down to like 5.
Okay.
Probably.
Again, these aren't going to be times where somebody's there presenting on it. It's just people who share that passion or are very interested in going into that passion who can now meet each other without having to just walk around, like after the session is over, you turn around and say, hi, my name is Mark, and are you interested in homeschooling curriculum?
Are you a YouTuber?
Yeah. You know, how do you even start that? You don't have enough time to do that. But I think in one segment of an afternoon, you can find 20 plus connections that you could have with people. I'm super, super pumped about this. And then later in the afternoon, on the first day, our plans are to have a content creator panel. We're going to see how many folks who make YouTube videos, podcasts, that kind of stuff, how many we can get together to sit around and kind of talk and brainstorm amongst themselves. How can we help each other? How can we share pieces of information that maybe we've learned in the process that could benefit everybody? This is kind of the rising tide lifts all the boats. So people can just sit and listen to the discussion. That one's still kind of fuzzy because we're working on that.
Yeah.
And that's not going to conflict with anything. That's not a typical workshop. That's just an afternoon. If you want to sit in there and ask questions, that's going to be the Friday afternoon.
And I think it's cool because it may be that some of the people who are making things on YouTube we've not come across yet. You know, there's so much being put on YouTube all the time, so much being put on podcasts. Part of it is just saying, you know, we need to be, even if we're not agreeing 100%, at least reading, watching, giving honest feedback always makes the algorithms work in favor of people. And that pushes at least the idea of the one God out there. And I think that's an important part of it.
Yeah. I mean, it goes without saying that the people who are at this conference want this message heard. And when more people are doing it, more people will hear it. It's just the simple facts.
Yeah, for sure.
I have a question, Mark.
All right.
Maybe this isn't the moment for this, but this is what I'm thinking about. Okay, let's say I'm going to the Unitarian Christian Alliance conference, and I haven't seen my friend in a year. I've got this female friend, and we get together and we decide to just ditch out on one of the workshops or on one of these afternoon programs. And we just decide to go hang out by ourselves. Is that frowned upon?
No. No, we're not taking attendance, and just do what you want. We have a social hall in the back. I know for a fact that there will be people who neither felt like going to a workshop or listening to a paper and maybe just wanted to sit with somebody and just talk, maybe have one of those deep conversations. There will be spaces for that. There's some extra rooms that you could even use. And the entire social hall will be available all the time. So you can just hang out that way. Or each night, our expectation is that it's over by 8:30. And then there are places you can go. There's it's called Mother Stewart's Brewery. I know there are a few people who will be showing up there. It's not far from the downtown hotel. So if you wanted to just stay at the downtown hotel and go over there and then walk back home, you could do that. So getting to spend time together is probably one of the most important things that we could do here. And so that was just the longest answer to say, yeah, do what you want.
I'm really appreciative of Lawrenceville opening themselves up in that way to say, hey, you've got the use of the building, you've got the use of the rooms off to the side, and it's really nice facilities. I'll brag on them a little bit. They've taken really good care of the building, and it's really cool that they're opening that up to us. If the goal is for us to come together to remind one another that we're in this together, that we want to get the message out, that we want to promote a Unitarian Christian view of God, part of that is building deep friendships that need the time of getting out and maybe going to Starbucks with your kids. That's not a bad thing, That's a great way to use your time there.
Yeah, that was a great question, Anna. Well, in both afternoons, the vendor tables will be open. These are the spaces where the sponsors will be available. You can walk around and talk to them during the more relaxed afternoon time. So the afternoon on Saturday, we're going to have one segment of time where there will be a baptistry available, because some people have wanted to be baptized, and maybe they're so isolated that it's just me and my wife, and I would like to maybe have somebody special to me baptize me, or maybe somebody that has meant a lot to me. And we have a baptistry there because it's a church. We're going to have that available. If that's something that you as a listener would like to do, you could reach out to me, podcast@unitarianchristianalliance.org, and we'll just put you down on a list and make sure that there'll be plenty of time. Here's a chance to maybe do it together with a small group of your own friends. Show up and have a little moment together.
Wow, that's really powerful. I know that my husband and I kind of ended up getting started on this whole journey. I think it must be 3 years ago now. Don't quote me. I think it's been 3 years.
Okay.
We Facebook messaged Sean Finnegan and asked him to baptize us.
And you hadn't met him yet, right?
No, we hadn't met him. He didn't know who we were at all. We Facebook messaged him out of the blue. I think he told me a couple years later that he almost didn't reply. But
yeah. So that's just a time for individuals to take advantage of the opportunity. It's not something that the UCA is doing. It's just there's time for that. And then that afternoon before dinner, we're going to have a debate training workshop. All the stuff that we all have to deal with, because how often is there another Unitarian Christian in a debate? So I think this will be very interesting. And of course, you don't have to go. Anna, you can still go with your friends. But that's Saturday afternoon, a debate workshop that is not at the same time as the other things. It's going to be just in the main room, so anybody who wants to come can come.
Are they going to have a mock debate? Are they going to debate about debates?
I don't know. I haven't gotten the details. It's going to be Will Barlow and Eric Miller leading that.
Excellent.
Apparently, Will Barlow was involved with debate a lot through his years, and it's fun to listen to him talk, so I think it'll be good.
Mm-hmm. Will Barlow knows all the debate stuff.
He knows it all. Yeah, in fact, at last year's UCA conference, there was a time when I think it was Dustin was sitting with Will, and they were just bent over their Bible. They were just talking and just very engaged. And somebody told me, it's like, they're talking about Dustin's upcoming debate. I was like, oh, and that's nice. So now let's do the same thing, but en masse.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of cool.
That is cool.
It's going to be awesome.
Oh, I'll just mention this because it's not UCA sponsored, but my brother is opening up his home, which was the former church that is now his house. So his living room is the sanctuary of a church from a building that was a schoolhouse back in the 1800s. And that's going to be the UCA Pre-party. So people showing up are like, well, the plane lands at 1 o'clock. The conference doesn't start. Then just head up the road. We'll send out the location to all the people who have registered so they'll know where to go. It's just like a mile or so up the road. And you just show up, hang around, and just visit with people while us technical people are back at the main facility making sure the sound is ready to go. Do you think you guys might be showing up there?
Definitely.
All right.
I could be weighed down by helping various sponsor tables get set up, but I probably won't. I just like to think of myself as having so much responsibility, but it'll be fine. We'll get ourselves all set up, and then, I'll definitely be at the pre-party too.
That's a good segue. There's several levels of sponsorships. If you go to the website, down in the description of the conference, there's a place for people who are going to be sponsors. And these are like groups that believe in what's happening and want to help support the thing. And these sponsors are both helping us keep the prices low, and they're able to have some extra visibility. And you, Anna, are helping actually several of these. Somehow you overlapped in a Venn diagram where you're in the middle.
It's a Venn diagram of a blessing. I told you earlier that I work with Living Hope International Ministries.
Mm-hmm.
We really try to put our best foot forward, tell people a lot about us and what we're doing. So we'll be there. Please stop by our table if you want some goodies.
Ooh.
And then also Compass Christian Church, which we're starting this fall, is going to have a table.
Oh.
We'd like to make sure that people know about us, so that if people want to plant a church, or so that if people want to learn about what we're doing or join us or support us in any way, we would like them to have that opportunity to talk to us. And then finally, number 3 is Christian-Centered Counseling, which is a nonprofit organization that Seneca Harbin and Laura Willenberg and Amanda Dunn and I started this spring, that's offering counseling resources to Unitarians free of charge.
That's awesome.
Wow. Okay. That is great. Are you going to be at all 3 tables at once? Isn't that kind of 3 in 1?
I don't know. I think that a lot of it is just me breaking the news to different tables that I'm not going to be able to be there.
Okay.
And I'm confident that each table is manned enough, because I honestly see myself spending a lot of time at the Living Hope table.
Okay. Well, that's exciting. And we've got several others that I don't, this is bad.
I've got them pulled up.
Okay.
Gold partners are the Church of God General Conference, Living Hope International Ministries, and Spirit and Truth. Silver partners are IntegritySyndicate.com, Truthborn, and Williamsburg Christadelphian Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And the bronze partners are Compass Christian Church, Lord's Harvest International, and Trinity's podcast.
Excellent. And there may be more before the day comes, because registration is still open and we're still chatting with people.
Yeah.
That's a nice set. Just a bunch of great people. And well, we've talked way more than I expected, and I will do some editing because I don't want it to be too long. But I'm not going to do nearly the kind of editing that I normally do. This will be hard.
You're up to the task, Mark. You can do it.
There are great podcasts out there that do no editing. You hear all the noise of IHOP in the background.
Oh, man.
But I'm really glad. Thank you so much for allowing me to be on and to talk about it. I'm so excited. We're registered. My whole family's going to go. This is actually a question that I could ask you, since we're doing a roundtable.
Sure.
What's it look like for kids?
Well, we don't have that as an official part of the thing that we offer, because we weren't sure that we would have people who could help do that.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a nursery there, because it's a full facility with space. There's a playground outside, and there's some kind of kids' rooms if somebody wanted to get together in a separate space. What we will have is at least 1, maybe 2 or more volunteers who will be spending time with the kids. They are going to be there, and they're willing to help out. And we're just very thankful for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, if you come with kids, you will likely be engaged with your kids. There's no kids programs of classes through the morning, and then we're taking them all to the water park in the afternoon, and then they're all getting on a bus and shipping them out of the country in the evening. No, that's not actually. We don't have those kinds of things. So you'll have to juggle things probably a bit with your wife, Jake. But there are folks around so that you will have some chance to breathe and do and interact in ways that will probably make your soul happy.
Yeah, great.
We'll see how it goes. I mean, each year we learn more. We've made some adaptations.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see how it goes this year. And I expect there to be more people who are kind of in that young adult range. I know of at least one couple who's like 20 and 22 years old who's coming. I mean, I'm picturing college kids being able to hang out together and get to know each other and make some friends. It's just exciting.
It is.
I love it. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, I love talking to you, Mark. I love talking about UCA. So thanks.
Okay, I did edit it maybe a little bit more than I had intended, but it still was like a third of a regular interview. Well, just don't tell Brandon I did that. So in the coming weeks, I'll be wrapping up my workshop efforts, and then I'll be making plans for that last evening community event at the UCA conference. That's the Saturday night grand finale. I may have to forego an episode or 2 or 3. This year's conference is more work for me than last one. Good news is, if it all goes well, the Saturday night community event will consist of splendidly delightful audio and will be released as a podcast episode, like maybe The Bing Crosby Show or A Prairie Heretic Companion. I also neglected to mention during the roundtable that because the conference ends Saturday night, everyone who is not headed home right away will have the option on the next morning of visiting one of the at least 6 local Unitarian Christian churches, all within 40 minutes of the Lawrenceville Church. The 6 groups include the Lawrenceville Church, who is hosting the conference. We'll have a list available there and in your event app. Oh, the event app. When you registered, you got an email with instructions for getting the app. It's called Eventleaf, one word. I'd suggest you go do that now. Download the app and have it ready. We will be using the app to help with communications like announcements or contacting other attendees and even submitting questions for the presenter Q&A time. And this is cool. Even though we aren't live streaming the event, we are going to have ongoing updates during the conference. If you are on Twitter, be sure to follow @Unitarian Christ. That's the official UCA Twitter account. Especially follow it if you aren't going to be able to make it to this year's conference. We plan to tweet live updates, short videos, photos, and also retweeting posts from other attendees. That's @Unitarian Christ. This year's hashtag is UCACon 2022. That's UCACON Con 2022. If you're coming and you are posting on Twitter, use hashtag UCACon 2022 in your posts. We'll be able to see them, and some of your tweets may find their way into the Saturday night event or elsewhere in the podcast. I'm currently recording this Sunday night, the 11th of September, and we have already just over 100 registered for the event. And with 1 month to go, we are planning for it to likely exceed 200. There are 220 available, and if we use all of those, well, we'll have ourselves what's called in the business a good problem. Go to unitarianchristianalliance.org/conference to get registered. We don't have a date for when registration is closing quite yet, because it will depend on the requirements of the caterers. But it could be a week or 2 before the conference starts, so that doesn't leave a lot of time. If you know someone curious about the conference and they're not really sure if they want to go, maybe share this with them. And time is a bit short, so if you think it would help, don't wait. Thank you, Anna and Jake, for making this a lot of fun. I can't wait to see you in a month. May God bless you in your truth pursuits. I hope this podcast serves you well.
Well, that's the news from Lake Woby to Unitarians, where all the women are wrong, all the men endure mocking, and all the children are apologists.
Kind of cool.
That is cool.
It's going to be awesome.